and welcome to Intuitive Journey with Desiree. I'm Desiree Holmes Scherini, your host, and today I'm really happy to have with me as my guest Lawrence Ellyard. He's force behind a new documentary called the New Woo documentary. He's the founder and director of the International Institute for Complementary Therapists. He's an author, speaker, podcast host, and thought leader. He's also received endorsements. He's not just, like anybody, not like us. He's like him. He's received endorsements from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Jack Canfield, Dr. Masaru Emoto, and Sir Richard Branson. He has a diverse background that includes a master's qualification in transpersonal medicine. He has decades of training in martial arts practitioner. He's also a sensei. And as well, he has experience in Tibetan Buddhism and indigenous shamanic traditions. He's also, like I think most importantly, maybe a devoted father who likes weaving family, purpose, and spiritual practices into every facet of his life and leadership. And his aim is to spark a worldwide movement. So welcome, and I'm so glad you're here. And can we start off with describe your goals, describe what is that worldwide movement?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show as well. And yeah, it's great to be here. I guess for me, the real interest is like how do we bring more credibility to the wellness industry and to the all the great people, the thought leaders that are creating amazing change in the world. So it's really about shining a light onto the various health and wellness practitioners that are out there, and that gives people a lens into other alternatives to the conventional ways of doing, medicine and mental health and so forth. So I just believe that we're at a critical time in humanity where there's a turning point. There's an opportunity for us to awaken, switch on, gain new perspectives on our, personal health and well-being. So we're essentially steering the ship of our lives in a more meaningful way. So that's really what I'm about.
That's fantastic. And you're in Australia, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So from, on that other side of the globe, from where I am in Washington, D.C., I see that you're lead an international group. Tell me about that group and how you connect people worldwide.
Yeah, so that's the global accreditation body that I started, well, 24 years ago this year.
Wow.
So it's been going for a long time. And that started out, I was a natural therapies educator. So I was running my own college and teaching and having students, having graduates, and they were looking for a solution for accreditation.
Hmm.
And I found that there were a lot of different practitioners in so many different modalities operating, and there was not one governing body that covered the whole industry. And people kept on saying, "Oh, I wish there was like one body that did the whole thing. Someone should do that." And then I was like, I think I'm that person.
And
So
so you
that's
are.
how it. Yeah, yeah. So that's how that started, and we initially started with 50 modalities. We're now 1,400 plus modalities, and
Incredible.
we actually, yeah, yeah. It's been a huge journey, and it's about creating an avenue for new and emerging therapies and practices to come into light. And I guess also with the documentary, The New Woo, what was considered woo woo, back in the day
Uh-huh.
is now just entering more and more mainstream practice. More people are saying, oh, that's longevity, or that's biohacking, or, that's good mental health. Doing mindful practice, or I'm doing, compassionate communication. Like all these different things just are starting to become more and more mainstream. So we're
They
like, well,
are.
considering there's this huge movement towards it, like how do we amplify that even more?
Yes, I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the movement. I've noticed one of the things that I talk to my guests about often is how science seems to finally be catching up with woo-woo.
Yeah.
Would you say so? That especially with quantum physics now, you're suggesting that maybe there's different planes of reality that we just don't always see, and I do hypnosis and I also do a lot of spiritual hypnosis, like past life regression or that sort of thing. And, for someone to say, oh, I don't believe in that stuff. But now science is like, well, we're not going to rule out we're going to actually confirm there's other levels here. So tell me about your documentary. Does it kind of go into that? What's the basis of it, and is it already out?
No, we're still casting for the documentary, so we're bringing together the different thought leaders to be showcased in the film, and we have currently about 30 experts and a lot of people
Neat.
that you would globally recognize immediately. People like Jack
On.
Canfield,
Huh?
we uh, yeah, Michael Beckwith, Marissa Peer,
Mm-hmm.
so Wim Hof, all these different thought leaders that are pioneers of thought leadership, pioneers of different wellness modalities, and yeah, IOCT, the body that I run, we've been accrediting a lot of these people for many, many years, so we have those relationships. But the filming will be starting in October this year in the US,
Oh,
and
in
then
the
we're looking
U.S.
at yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it'll be a late 2027 release, and one of the filming locations is at Sadhguru's compound in Tennessee. So a lot of people know of Sadhguru. He's
Mm-hmm.
all over the internet, and yeah, so we just have an amazing collection of humans that are going to be out there to share their message. And I guess the idea is that it really hasn't been till that the movie The Secret that came out nearly 20 years
Mm-hmm.
ago now. That was
Right.
a huge worldwide sensation, right? And it was really
Mm-hmm.
on the law of manifestation. So this film isn't just on that. It's really about showcasing the various modalities, the different wellness practices that people can utilize. So I guess my goal as co-executive producer with Lolly's Entertainment is to bring a commonality, a thread, that guides people through, the
Mm-hmm.
very diverse and complex world of wellness modalities. As they come out of that seeing like, wow, there's all these different options like for my health, things I can do to support myself, to get better sleep, to have more optimized performance when I'm working or whatever I'm doing. Yeah, having better connected relationships, having more meaningful relationship to myself. Yeah, all of these things are available to us. So it's really a great privilege to be at the cutting edge of this. Yeah, to bring the
Mm-hmm.
different people together so that
Bring it to a showcase, show people, because it's been out there growing, and put it all in one big basket, and be able to hand it
pretty
out.
much. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like, they have these wellness expos where all the different people come, or they have big
Mm-hmm.
summits where everyone comes. So it's really like creating a place where all of the individual practitioners can be visible and seen, and they can share their message. And there is there's so many different approaches to health and wellness. So it's about giving an avenue where this can all be shown in one place. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
then of course the viewer can go in and they can cherry pick. Oh, okay, this connects. I connect with that person, or I like the idea of that practice. Yeah, so then they'll go from there to explore further connections with the various thought leaders, or they might go and find a practitioner of that particular healing art in their local area, and then they can start to take another alternative to, say, a pharmaceutical route or a strictly medical route, and say, well, what are the complementary, the additional practices that I could use to help, my lifestyle optimize, who I am and how I show up in the world. Yeah. So ultimately, it's a platform for healing, for new ways of being, new ways to show up in humanity and, be authentic as we show up in the world. So this is a great thing.
Are you considering including any of the uh, new scientists that are confirming, you know, the reality that these things work, like, you can think of a few, like there's Dean Radin, or anyway, they come to mind. If you ever want a list, I'll send them to you. But
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
out there, several out there talking about, this used to be called woo woo, but here's the science behind it. Um,
Yeah. And I think that's super important because, there are obviously the skeptics out there and they're,
Yeah, and people need
we,
that to say, oh,
they do. Yeah, yeah. There's the credibility factor is super important. So, and there have been a lot of great studies that have come out and peer reviewed and, that are really grounding this material. And it's this
mhm.
ancient, a lot of it is ancient
Exactly.
wisdom.
That's
Uh,
exactly it.
yeah.
It's been around. It's like you talked about shamanism, Buddhism, any of the ancient arts that it's it was called woo woo or magic or but if it works and now many of it has scientific names. So
Yeah.
how did you what was your path? I'm always interested in my guests' path to where they are now. When did when did you steer your car in this direction?
Yeah, well, I think if we go right back as a child, I was very attuned to other things that were not normal, yeah, or
Okay.
considered normal. So I would see spirits, or I'd hear, I'd get messages. I'd be attuned to seeing things in the non-ordinary sense, and I just thought that was normal, And then obviously, as you grow up, you check it out and you go, "Oh, actually, this is really not
Nobody
normal."
else sees that? Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. So I was very, intuitive, dialed in, connected, you could say, to source, as a child. And then as a teenager, I was very interested and fascinated with different healing practices, healing arts. And so I got involved in that very early. And I guess for me, I was going down a more conventional path. So my parents were like, "Well, you should get yourself," I was very interested in art and so forth. And they said,
All
"Well,
right.
you're going to be a starving artist, so you need to, look at commercial art at least." So I was looking at graphic design, and I was in that industry and for a short time because I just felt like it wasn't authentic and real. And it was like, well, what's my heart calling me towards, or my spirit calling me? And so I was very much involved in that world and had a strong pull towards it. So at some point, I was like, okay, I have to go into this full time. So I met with also some incredible teachers at that age. So this is late teens, and
Wow.
had the privilege,
Ready. Yeah.
yeah, privilege of spending a lot of time with some great Buddhist masters and different meditation teachers and insight teachers. So this is the Advaita Vedanta tradition is in sort of more of the Vedic approach, and then there's also the different schools of Tibetan Buddhism, which were directly linked to insight, direct identification with your aspirations. So
Hmm.
the idea that one should, behave like a Buddha until you become
Yeah.
your Buddha.
Be a
You
Buddha.
become your
I like that.
Yeah, until you
That
become
should
your
be a
Buddha. Yeah.
t-shirt. Be
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Buddha.
exactly. Be like Buddha. Yeah, yeah. And Bud, the word actually means like bud, to open like a flower opening. Yeah. So it's like your own potential, your innate wisdom, your kindness, your compassion to arise in the world. Yeah. To come forth like a flower opening, is the idea. So, and obviously there's a whole range of teachings and practices that support that.
Hmm.
But it's also important to be with like-minded people too, yeah, so that they can support you in your journey. Yeah, it's very hard to do this
Someone to
alone.
talk to because like they're
Yeah.
and I think they're maybe it's just because of people I'm beginning to communicate with, hang around with in the last several years. It used to
Mm.
be very lonely to
Yeah.
have a conversation with myself about these sorts of things, right? there,
Yeah.
there is everybody I would start, say, hey, have you heard of? And they, oh, gosh, I got to go grocery shopping and I can't hang around. I'd lose friends, not friends fast, but I'd lose the conversation and have to stick to, basics like what's for dinner.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I
And
think it,
and we can do the mundane, right? But there's often a deeper
yeah,
calling in us for some greater depth, because I think ultimately, as human beings, we're all about connection and what's under the surface, yeah? Like what's the you could have the idea that the ordinary mundane of life is a little bit like the
the
waves
surface
itself
of the
on the
water. Yeah.
ocean, the
Huh?
surface, and underneath is the
Yeah.
depth, and the depth is actually what calls us. very deeply. Yeah, and sometimes we can be very outwardly consumed with the dramas or the obstacles or
Yes.
the the minutiae of life or the boredom of life, what the
Hmm.
main grind or whatever it is. And then there's a deeper calling for humanity, right? To connect to something much more profound, much more meaningful. And these are the moments where catch we notice that we're present, or we notice that we see something amazing or transformative, and it touches us. And these are the glimpses, you could say, of the our true potential. And it might be just we see there, and we see a beautiful sunset, or we see a child just in their spontaneous joy or play, and we go, oh, and that hits us. And so I think this is you know to have the opportunity to slow down and notice what we're noticing can be incredibly empowering. And also
And
to
it's
be,
healthy too.
it
It
is, yeah.
creates a different, uh, level. It changes your chemistry. It changes your blood
Yeah.
chemistry. It changes your mind, your brain waves, and in a healthy way for your whole body.
Yeah, yeah. So we're, ultimately we've become these quite sophisticated beings, right? In the modern day and with technology, and it's great to embrace all these things. And we're the human animal, right? We're also meant to be connected to the earth, and we've lived in these tribes and have these extended families all living in the same environment, yeah, like a village in a way. And we've become quite separate. We've become these, living in these little
Pods,
units, apartments, these pods, and we're disconnected from our tribe, right? So
boxes. Yeah. Look
yeah,
out at the
yeah,
other
yeah.
people in their boxes.
Exactly. And that's, in a sense that's quite disconnected to what our evolution has been. Yeah, and we are naturally drawn to be with others. We're drawn to support, and it's the whole idea, like with raising children, it takes a village, and it does. But society these days is it's a parent or two parents, but they're off working and they're having no time with their children. So I think bringing more presence and consciousness and connectedness, and just doing something that's in the moment, is incredibly liberating. And we heal a part of our own inner child, you could say, through that. And we also support our children in their development by actually showing up and being there for them. So it's quite a beautiful thing. And yeah, I think in life we can often get too busy and we miss, yeah, it's that the idea, stop and smell the roses, like literally do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
With my
or any flower you can find, right?
anything. With my clients, I often, I get a lot of people with anxiety, especially here in the city. And
Yeah,
they come in and they're like, I don't know, I just, can't settle down. I'm anxious, I'm unhappy, I'm, everything. and and a lot of times, as a mindfulness teacher as well as hypnotherapist, life coach, I rely on that modality a lot. And, give them little assignments like just take a walk and look at the pebbles in the dirt.
yeah,
And it's like, notice the pebbles. And because I've done this myself, but it's take yourself out of all of that and just zoom in. And, one example, or if you're driving down the street, notice the color of all the trees, notice the color of the cars, take, instead of in here, just kind of go in the moment, like you're talking about. And pebble gazing, I don't think it's such a thing, but it could
that
be.
could be.
Um,
It could
if
be.
you know those gravel, or the little pebbles that they throw in gardens and such, they're really lovely little. Most of them are lovely little crystals that you would never have
Yeah,
realized. How actually pretty these simple just rocks that we just walk on are. And it kind of connects you, like you say, to the earth, to nature, and say, oh, I never noticed that. And it's so important that people take themselves out of all that swirling, chaotic energy that you'll get swept up in, sort of like, um, the was it Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, right?
yeah,
you can end up on that crazy, or you could just kind of go in, close the door, and contemplate, peace. Tell me
Yeah.
about it. Your, it says as well here, um, so many pieces of who you are that are just sound fascinating. As far as it says, you have an author and a podcast host as well. So tell me about those two things, like your writing and your podcast.
Yeah, well, the podcast is for the New Wu documentary, so that's in development because we'll
Oh,
be
okay.
interviewing people with the film. But with the books, yeah, I've written 9 books and on various subjects. I had the privilege of working with Dr. Masuro Emoto, who did
That's
the
very lucky.
uh, consciousness into water and then how that can affect the actual structure of the water. So yeah, we were doing some experiments in his laboratory in Tokyo. So we were looking at Tokyo tap water, and I was doing a tour with some of my students in Japan, and we were going along to some of the historic and ancient sites and spiritual places. So a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a pilgrimage in a way. But part of that is we were invited to do this experiment by directing our positive healing intention to the Tokyo tap water. And I don't know if you've drunk the tap water in Tokyo. It's not amazing.
Not
It's
lately.
very yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Ah,
it doesn't taste great, and I guess you can actually taste if water if it's structured or
mhm.
of a high quality because it tastes sort of sweet and smooth. And if you take your regular tap water, you drink it, it feels like you can sort of taste the heavy metals in it almost, and it's not
Can,
great, right? And
right.
chlorinated and so forth. So yeah, so the experiment we did is there were 7 of us, and we were standing around this little pitch of tap water, and
Hmm.
we were directing our healing energy and positive, like love and kindness towards the water, and it was really interesting the results because then eventually, they freeze the water droplets, then they
Hmm.
use a dark field electron microscope, and as the crystal is actually slowly defrosting, it forms a crystal, or it doesn't.
Right.
Uh, but the consistent thing that kept on showing up was this formation of a seven-sided crystal, which is really rare. But it was depicting the 7 of us standing in a circle.
That
So
is interesting.
yeah, it had this opening, and then there were these 7 facets, and the center was sort of empty or like swirling. So it was like, and that was the idea. We were thinking, well, we're like a conduit of peace and divinity, and we're extending this out to the water. And so yeah, the actual structure mirrored the intention, or it
That I
showed
have
it
not
actually.
heard that before.
It,
That's fascinating. I mean, I
yeah,
have heard about the intention, obviously. I did a presentation on it, as a matter of fact, for a group. And if anybody's interested, that recording's in my list of presentations down there. Um, but I was lucky enough to have as a guest his assistant who has carried on. I
right,
don't
yeah,
know if you've met her or if you've been in touch with her as well, who's
yeah,
carrying on his work.
yeah,
Um, I'm a big fan of water.
yeah, yeah,
It is fascinating that it has these qualities. It has a quality of memory. It has a quality of absorbing, as you pointed out, the emotions or thoughts or intentions around it. Um, and it's definitely I would say, underutilized element.
yeah.
There was also a guy, and as I said, ended up doing a presentation on it, but a man from Austria, and of course, I'll go blank on his name while I'm trying to think of him,
Yeah.
but he was a naturalist, and he also came up with some really interesting information on water just from observing the nature of water.
Mm.
And the idea that it shouldn't go in, square turns and pipes, that
Yes.
it should be able to
Flow.
flow
Yeah.
because it goes like this is
Yes.
the natural vortex. And actually our hearts do the same thing, believe it or not. I don't know if you heard that, but our heart
Yeah.
also
I've had
pumps the
this.
blood
Yeah.
in a vortex. So
Yeah.
anyway, more of the woo woo stuff that I'm sure
Yeah.
many of your people on your film will be talking about. There's so much that we
Yeah.
just don't even know because certainly our doctors don't tell us. They're
No,
like,
it's true.
take a pill.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, well, don't look after your nutrition, your sleep, and don't regulate your nervous system. Bombard yourself with, EMFs and programming, which is,
yeah.
television program. So we're
Mhm.
getting all this bombardment of information, and we're disconnected from nature, from ourselves.
More and
Our
more.
heads are
Yeah.
in our phones the whole time, and yeah, so it's like, put your phone down and connect and be in nature, be with other people. I mean, that's where the magic is. But it was interesting what you said before about with the idea of with water and there's all these straight lines, but if we look in nature, we don't really see a lot of straight lines. Yeah, we see
No,
a natural flow, a movement, yeah,
what
and the
was his name?
water,
Schauberger was his name.
yeah. Oh, that's
Victor
yeah.
Victor Schauberger. And
Hmm.
there's a very you know what, our my audience could probably go find it on YouTube. You might call it dull, but it's fascinating because it's just a narrator talking about Schauberger. But it talks about his, studying water and these machines, not machines, but mechanics that he came up with, and even
Yeah.
how to clean the water through a vortex system. Um, just it really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah. And we're also, that was one of the premises that Mr. Emoto pointed out is that,
Mhm.
we're, 70-80% water. The younger we are,
That's
the more
right.
water we have. The older we are, the less water we have. But, we're essentially water. So the self-talk, the things that we say to ourselves will entrain the energetic pathways. It'll affect the water in our body. Yeah. So if we're very tight and fixed and we're not moving, we're not flowing like water does, then of course everything, gets blocked up in the body, right? So this is like, why it's so important to have movement, and it's all about how we flow in our lives. So there's this big distinction between the inner and outer, yeah? So, if we're really fixed in our or rigid in our thinking, yeah, then we don't flow in life. If we have this idea of possibility and how we might be more malleable and express ourselves, then
Hmm.
there'll be more opportunity around it as well. Yeah, it's also like to do with abundance and finances as well. If we
Everything
hold
just
tight,
flows in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so it should, right? This is the idea that consciousness and potential is abundant. Nature is abundant.
Hmm.
If we respect it, if we look after it, if we have a relationship to it in ourselves, then the environment will give that back. It will mirror it back. If our thinking is very tight or rigid, then we'll get that back. Yeah. So it's
If
this
we
idea that
expect the worst, then we're
yeah,
putting out that energy, or that, that's what we're going to see too, more
yeah,
likely. And work on consciousness now as well. Is there, again, the scientists are studying consciousness, which
yeah.
definitely wasn't anything they would even call, use the word before. And
Mm.
I've seen, stuff talking about how they're saying consciousness is not in the brain. They're figuring out it's someplace outside of the brain. Hence, we can talk about the plasma or the interrelatedness, or how does psychic work if
Yeah.
things are isolated only within our bodies. There's information out there in the circuitry around us that we just can't see. So
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? And there's so many things we don't understand. We just take it for granted. Like you put the switch on, the light comes on. Like I don't, I can identify that the light has come on. I don't know how it works, but I know it's there, and it can be like that. We can meet somebody and we can instantly, go, oh my God, they're incredible, or I
Mhm,
feel like I know you, and then we might meet someone else and we go, oh, I don't want to be
mhm.
near this person. I immediately feel repelled. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are those forces that are about attraction and aversion? Like what's going on? Is it just random, or why is it that we meet certain people and we immediately, have a friendship or a connection or a great love. Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that this goes back to not just this life, but if you have this idea of former lives or previous connections are reappearing, so we get to kind
Yeah.
of work through and evolve ourselves. There was a great Indian mystic. He said, if you don't believe in past lives, that's fine. You will in your next life. And I thought that was such a great one.
Yeah.
But it's true, that there's this idea that there must be something more than, what we're seeing out of our eyes and what's
Hmm.
coming into our ears and what we feel in our body. We know that there must be something more than this, right? And if we tune in and connect to ourselves, I think most people come to this knowing. And again, they may not know why or how, but there is a
Exactly.
deeper sense, and I'd say that's our spirit being, that's our spirituality, that's our
It's
potential
time. It's like
speaking.
it's time, and people, I've spoken to so many people, that their, I would say, path in this direction of a deeper understanding of spirituality didn't start, they didn't grow up like that. Like you had, images or scenes when you were a kid and you always, had this leaning. But there are some people, say 40 years old, all of a sudden it was, the tick 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 time, and
Mm.
their switch was flipped and they went down a completely different path, totally changed their
Yeah.
life, and became very interested in all of this. So I think it's just fascinating. But what do they say? When you're ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of how I've met, talking to people. Some people have been on that path. And it's interesting that you brought up like automatic, like or dislike. Isn't it true also that animals seem to have that already?
Yes. Yeah.
The birds, they seem to get a little weird when something's going to happen. If you haven't noticed,
Yes.
in dogs, they either like somebody to start growling. You're like, oh no, he's usually friendly. I don't understand. And,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
mhm. Cats will
Yeah, and
go up to.
I feel, yeah, cats will go up to you or different animals. Yeah, again. So I think if your nervous system is at peace, then naturally things come towards you. So animals, people, opportunity. If you're agitated or disturbed, then there's the sense of being able to downregulate is being
Yeah,
what's called in. And cats are a good example of that. Like if you're feeling unwell or disturbed, often a cat might come up to you actually and sit on you and purr
exactly.
and
Mine's
it's
sitting right next to me
yeah.
now, and the
Yeah,
same
there you
thing
go.
did just happen. And I've had him since December. He's about 2 now.
Yeah.
But I wasn't well last week, just feeling ugh, laying on the sofa. And usually when I'm, feeling fine, he's meow, 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 play with me, you know,
Yeah.
like, come on. But while I was laying on the sofa with the remote in my hand for, a couple days, he just
Yeah.
came right up and he curled right up next to me. And and he'd look at me and it's like he knew I was sick. He didn't bother me to play. He just followed me around from room to room and would lay either next to me or near wherever I was. And I'm like, that's really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
was so
yeah.
intuitive to do that. And
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And that's true. Like nature is intuitive. It knows, it reflects the way forward. So we can have a lot just by we can help ourselves, I think, by just spending time in nature and, get your phone away. And I mean, I'm
yeah,
not anti-phones, like they're a useful device. It helps us connect and
yeah,
do all kinds of things we couldn't do before. And it can be a trap, right? Because we can lose ourselves in it. We can lose
mm,
a sense of presence. We're just
that,
constantly getting
yeah.
entertained.
Or I
And
see
it's like,
people at dinner
yeah,
and they both have
yeah,
their phones in their hands. It's
yeah,
like, sit alone. Why are you together?
yeah. Well, this
Um,
is it,
yeah.
and people try to capture the moment through their phone rather than
So
just experience the moment, right?
I
So,
catch myself doing that all the time,
yeah,
looking at the phone of what I'm videoing, like fireworks or something, and then not enjoying the fireworks. And I'm like,
yeah,
what am I doing? Put the phone down.
exactly. And how many times are you going to go back and look at that
Nope, never.
video of the fireworks? Like once or
No,
never,
but I'll
right?
remember it so much better in the moment, just if
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the moment and seen the colors or seen, the sounds, been there then. instead of like
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
I'm going to save it for, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So busy trying to capture the moment, we miss the moment, right?
It's the
And
truth.
it's like, and that's that's from that movie was it Kung Fu Panda, when they were saying, the present, that's why they call it a gift, because it is the present.
Oh,
It is
a
a gift,
present
yeah.
is a gift. And like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
true.
And it truly is, yeah. So
Uh,
um and
That's
it's
part of,
constantly happening all the time, right? So
that's just basic part of mental wellness, like we've talked about, being in the moment,
mm,
mindfulness, because people that are stuck in the past, you know, overly concerned about something they can't change or go back and or worried about the future, like you say,
hmm
they're missing their opportunity to find peace in the moment because you
yes.
can't you
Yeah.
can't really necessarily do anything about either of those. You can, do something about the future, but you can't constantly be worried about did I do enough, because it doesn't
Yeah.
change if you worry. I used to tell my mom, I worry about you. I'm like, thank you, mom. But worrying doesn't do me any good. It just kind of
Yeah.
sends out, you know, thoughts that something might be wrong. And I'm like, just send me good intentions that everything's great instead of worrying that everything's not.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly. And
yeah,
and that's the idea of like prayer, that's the
yeah.
idea about
Send me some prayers.
it's aspirational, yeah. And again, like the past, we can't do anything about. It's already happened. So, often we look back on our past and we're embarrassed, or we're like, oh God, I did that or I said that and I wish it, but we can't do anything about it. So the only thing we can do is right now,
Hmm.
because the future's unwritten. It hasn't happened. And yes, we should have aspiration towards what we want to create, because that's how it works. And it's how we show up in the present moment, and the actions that we take, and the things that we
Hmm.
say that are supportive. And I would always encourage people to do something that your future self would be thank you. Saying thank you for doing that. I'm so glad
Yeah,
my
right.
past self made that choice, or took that action, or was courageous enough to say I love you, or was courageous enough to step into something that felt
Hmm.
a bit edgy, but it felt connected, it felt real. So, yeah, so I always say to people, do things in the present that your future self would be grateful for. And
Actually had a conversation in the car with myself today, and I kind of
yeah,
laughed at myself because the radio was on and I was actually talking out loud, saying, okay, so you're always complaining about this and that and this and that, but what are you doing about it? I mean, if you're seriously upset. And then I turned to the radio, I said, be quiet, I can't hear myself. And I'm like,
unreal.
wait a minute. And, I was like having the conversation about, yeah, don't, if you don't like this, then what are you actually doing about it? I was talking to me. I said, I need to talk to you about not actually following my own advice, like you say, and also how do I
Yeah,
speak to myself? What am I going to do differently so that I don't just stay stuck? Hey,
yeah,
life coaches
and
have
that's
problems
true.
too, right?
Oh, of course, but we often we often do work. We find ourselves in work which is helping us in our own journey too, right? We get to mirror
Yes,
back from the clients we attract or the people we work with,
so
so
true.
yeah, and that's that saying, we teach what we most need to learn,
And
often.
it
Yeah,
comes in
yeah,
handy. And
yeah,
it's
for
true. I'll
sure.
get a
Yeah,
wave of clients with one particular issue, and I'm like, this is funny. That's the same thing I've been
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? Well, we have a
yeah,
couple more minutes before I need to let you go. So
yeah.
I just want to ask first off, share where people can find out more. Also, any last things you'd like to share with my audience?
Yeah, well, look, I probably just the last thing I'd say is that this idea of self-talk is really important. Yeah, so it's not only about what we say to people, and do we uplift and support, and are we kind with our words, but also then what's the inner dialogue? Do we chastise ourselves? Do we go, oh, I was such an idiot, or I was stupid, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So, what's our internal dialogue happening? So I think we can do a lot about that. So yes, show up with kindness and things that are supportive, and be assertive where we need to be with kindness. And we can be both. We can be assertive and kind, which is, quite a revelation for some people. But it's also important about, what we say internally to ourselves. And so, I mean, a very practical thing that I always suggest is that when we go to sleep, we can think about what we did that was great. And when we wake up in the morning, we can think about what it is that we'd like to create in the world, have that aspiration. And we sow the seed.
Right.
And we can wake up with a state of like, oh my God, I got to get up and get to work or whatever it is. Or
Or
I can wake up
glad
and
that
go,
you're able
oh,
to, right?
yeah, exactly. Like a miracle. Oh my God, I'm awake. I'm alive.
Yeah.
I didn't die in my sleep. What a great opportunity to contribute, and what can I create today? So have that sense of wonderment. Um, the idea of I get to go to work. I get to do whatever is the thing that, I might just have to reframe it in my mind and say, well, what is the possibility? What is the joy? What is the experience I want to create? That's our own individual choice. So if that would be one message, I'd be say, watch your inner dialogue and look at how you can support what you want to create with your thoughts, because we are free to do that. It's one of the things that are free in life. Yeah, this gift of mindfulness, this gift of how we relate to ourselves is such a tremendous gift. Yeah. So and I think for people want to find out more and connect with me, then my website would probably be the best place to go. So that's lawrenceellyard.com. And I think you probably have that in the show notes or something like
So it'll
that.
be in the details.
Yeah, and I guess if there's anyone listening that is a wellness professional, practitioner in any of the different complementary therapies, like I said, we have accreditation that we offer for people all over the world for that. So that would be myiict.com for people looking for accreditation. And people can also find me on Instagram, or if you type Lawrence Ellyard on Google, I'm everywhere. So you'll find me
Perfect.
there.
And like, yeah,
And
those
yeah, people.
links will be in the details as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
And
it's
if they follow
absolutely.
you, they can, look for the release of the movie and, any, I guess, details of it coming up and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Instagram is, where I'm posting most of my stuff of what I'm up to. So
All
that's a
right,
good place
great.
to find. Yeah.
It's
Well,
been
thank you for your
fantastic.
time. Yeah, it was great to
I'm
connect
glad
and
I'm
share some
glad we
ideas.
finally found the date and the time and got to have a conversation. It's been wonderful. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. So I'm going to say goodbye and stop the recording, but don't go away.